Hi, welcome nature friends to Placerita Canyon Nature Center. I'm Sandra and I'm one of the docent naturalists here. We are in our Placerita Canyon Nature Center classroom. We have beautiful diorama, we have live animals for you to come and see. Today I'm here to talk to you about arachnids. And I'm going to start out with spiders. Now, arachnids, by the way, are a type of arthropod. Do you know what an arthropod is? Well, they have segmented bodies. They have jointed limbs like we do. By the way, we have a segmented body too. And they also have an exoskeleton. An exoskeleton means that they have like a shell on the outside, whereas we have our skeleton on the inside. Today we're going to talk about spiders, Chelicerates. That's their scientific name. So what makes a spider? Well, they have 8 walking legs. They also have 2 pedipalps that are kind of like little short arms that help them focus food into their mouth. They have they're also little clippers, little chewy, tiny little appendages that help them chew their food because they don't really have a beak or a mouth that's able to crunch things. They have basically 4 pairs of eyes. 4? Well, not every spider has 4 pairs or 8 eyes, but most of them do, which is amazing. We have enough trouble with just 2. They have something which I'm sure the library would love to know. They have something called book lungs. Their lungs look like pages in a book, so that's how they got the name. Okay, what can I tell you? What else can I tell you? They have something called spinnerets, and those spinnerets are what actually help produce and spread out the silk that helps them make webs. So I said earlier they have a segmented body. Their body is segmented similar to ours. They have a head area, and then they have an abdomen area. The legs are connected to that cephalothorax, or the head area, and also the pedipalps and those little pincher mandibles that they have. They don't chew their food. Yeah, they actually inject venom into their prey, and it's digestive enzymes. And the whole inside of whatever they've caught gets turned to liquid, and then they slurp it back up. And that's pretty cool, huh? Kind of like a bug slurpee. They make webs. Oh my gosh, they are such artists. They make the most beautiful webs. I have a picture here to show you, and I'm going to hold it up for you. And this picture of a web shows just how stunning their webs and how artistic they are. These little spinnerets have little spigots, and they can actually have multiple strands, and sometimes they twist them together, and they make a very strong silk that helps them catch their prey. Not every spider catches their prey in a web. Some of them have webs, they're like fishing nets. They're in the sky, sort of like fishermen have nets in the ocean. Well, they have them in the sky, so any bug that flies by can get caught. And when that happens, they go over and they take them down and they wrap them up, put a little digestive enzyme in them, and put them aside for later, sort of like a pantry. So they have food for later. Some of them have a web on the ground, kind of sticky. And speaking of spiders that have webs on the ground, we also have our California brown tarantula. A tarantula is like a very, very large spider. So our tarantula, as you can see, is pretty darn big. And that particular tarantula, this is the season in the fall when they go looking for dates. So they have these huge migrations, and if you're lucky enough to see one of them at some point, it's amazing because it looks like a parade. And those are the guys looking for the gals. Everybody wants a date. One more thing I wanted to tell you about tarantulas is they molt because they have that exoskeleton also. And when they grow, it gets really tight in there. And they can't just, their skin doesn't grow. So what happens is it splits at the top and they pull themselves out. And there they are. They're very vulnerable at that point because they don't have that hard shell around them. And it takes about a day or two before that becomes hard again. In the meantime, if you have a tarantula in a cage, it looks like you have another tarantula because the exoskeleton is still there. And it's really kind of freaky to look at. I also brought another treat for you today that I actually found on my way over here today. It's a cellar spider. And it's a girl. How do I know it's a girl? Well, it's a female because she has an egg sac. They also use their spinnerets to make an egg sac that holds anywhere from dozens to hundreds of eggs. This particular spider, she's decided to carry them with her. Some spiders just hang them up. While we're talking about webs and hanging them up, black widows tend to hang theirs up and hopefully nobody sees them and squishes them. But there's another way that you can tell a black widow from other spiders. They have some very unique characteristics. The most important thing to look for, you know, people say, oh, look for the red spot. Yes, they have a very marked red spot. And then people say, should I turn it over to look for it? No, 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 no. You never want to touch it to turn it over to look for a red spot. But what's really very important that really tells you you have a black widow in front of you is the web. Remember that beautiful artistic web? Black widow webs look like a tangled mess. They're just all over the place. So if you see one of those real tangly, yucky messes, look for the black widow. Also, as you notice, they're extremely black, and their abdomen, the bottom part, is kind of fat and rounded. It's very big compared to other spiders. So that's one of the ways that you could tell a black widow. That's pretty much what I have to show you today, except I'm so glad that the library is here and they brought so many books. I'm so glad they have all these great books for us. And now I'd like to introduce you to Sandra. Sandra's going to come up and talk about scorpions.
Hi, I'm Sandy. I'm a docent here at Placerita Canyon Nature Center. Today I'd like to tell you a little bit about scorpions. Now, most everybody knows what a scorpion looks like. Has that big long tail with a stinger on it and those big huge claws. But what exactly is a scorpion? Is it an insect? Is it a land lobster? Kind of looks like one, doesn't it, with those big claws? But no, it's an arachnid, just like its cousins, the spiders, the ticks, and the mites. Scorpions have been around for a very long time, about 435 million years, way before the dinosaurs even came. Paleontologists know this because they found fossils. Now, they were really huge back then. They ran from 1 foot to 9 feet. Now today, you don't really have to worry about that because nowadays scorpions go from a ½ an inch to about 9 inches. And you'll be happy to know that the 9-inch ones do not live in the United States. So you're good. Okay, there are over 2,500 species of scorpions. And they live in all sorts of places. They live all over the world as long as it's not too cold. They can live in mountains. They live in forests. They live in grasslands. Most of them live in the desert though. They're really more adapted to desert than anywhere else. They can even live in ponds and caves. Now, ponds, how can they live near or in a pond? Well, they have what are called book lungs, which Sandra spoke about before with spiders. It's the same kind of thing. the layers, the membranes are so tightly packed together that they can actually be underwater for up to 2 days. It's amazing, huh? So, and so, as I said, spiders also have that type of breathing organ. Now, they're nocturnal, and that means that they mostly move around at night. What do they do during the day? Well, they hide underneath rocks or pieces of bark or under leaves or anywhere, little crevices and things. So be careful if you're out walking around and you're picking up things or poking your fingers in holes, because there can be things in there that can bite you, so be careful, okay? Biologists used to search for different species of scorpions by going around at night and using a flashlight, because that's when they're out running around. And up until a few years ago, they only thought there were about 1,500 different varieties, different species. However, then they discovered that they all they glow in the dark when you put a fluorescent light, an ultraviolet light on them. So on this picture, you will see this is what they used to see, and this is what they now can see. So it's very easy to see them now. And since they've made that discovery, they actually have found 2,500 different species. So increased by a lot. Okay, they have an exoskeleton, which is a hard covering, which is like armor. Like the knights in shining armor, they used to have armor on the outside. Well, a lot of creatures have stuff like that, like spiders, crickets, ants, and also the scorpion. But they don't have bones on the inside to support themselves. And the reason that scorpions glow in the dark is because that chitin covering on their exoskeleton has a chemical that's a fluorescent chemical that allows them to glow in the dark. Now, other scorpions can see this color where we need a light to see it. They can see it just fine. That doesn't mean they have really good eyesight, because they actually don't. It's fairly poor. They can see mostly movement or light and dark. They have weirdly placed eyes. On their head, shall we call it that? I'm not going to use the same scientific term. On their head, they have 2 eyes on the top. And then along the sides, they can have 2 to 3 pairs. So they have a lot of eyes. It depends upon the variety, the species of scorpion, but they can have like up to 5 pairs of eyes. But still, they mostly see light and dark and shadows. Like their cousins, the spiders, they have 8 legs, and they have little tiny hooks on the end of them. And unlike the pedipalps that the spiders have, the pedipalps are enlarged and actually are what those big pinchers are. They use the pinchers to grab their food and hold on to it so they can either sting it or just crush it and eat it. Their bodies are covered with these tiny sensory hairs. It's another way they can explore the world, because their eyesight isn't very good. So they have all these hairs. On the bottom, they have like little brushes. So they can feel vibrations, things moving around, and it's very important for them to find out about the environment they're in. And of course, there's that lovely tail that curves up over their back. The tail piece is actually segmented, and it goes over the top, and then it has a little stinger at the end of it. Now, they only use a stinger for self-defense or larger prey, because it takes a lot of energy to make more venom, and you always want to have a good supply of venom just in case something big is trying to hurt you. Now, what do scorpions eat? They're carnivores. No vegetarians in the lot. And they eat things depending upon the size. If you're really tiny, you're not going to eat a mouse. But if you're bigger, you can. If you're small, you might eat little bugs, little ants and spiders and other scorpions the same size as you maybe. And they're not really picky. They'll eat grasshoppers too. They can eat lizards and mice. There are 2 types of hunting techniques. One of them is where they stay in their burrow and they wait. Kind of like tarantulas do this too. They wait until food passes in front of them. And then when they sense through all those little hairs and light and dark and movement, they see something pass in front of their burrow, they jump out and grab it. The other way is for them to actively hunt it down. Okay? Luckily for them, especially the ones that sit and wait, and what if no food comes in front, okay? They actually can live for a year with no food. But usually every 2 to 3 weeks, they have a successful hunt. Let's see. Scorpions are very tiny little mouths. So they eat almost the same way as spiders do. They have the same sort of enzyme that turns inside of the cricket or whatever into a liquid, and then they can slurp it up. But they crush it up, and then they do that. Now, we've spoken about the things that scorpions eat, but what eats them? Lots of stuff. It's a scary animal eat animal world out there. And so they have to be very careful. Even other scorpions will eat them. Coyotes will eat them. I believe skunks will eat them. Meerkats, birds, owls, bats, shrews, which are like these little mouse things, but they're really mean. Mongoose, all those things. And humans. In Asia, they're a delicacy along with tarantulas. Scorpions prefer to live alone, but they do come together when it's time to mate. The males come and they grab the pinchers of the female and they do a little dance for about an hour. And then they mate, and then he skedaddles, he gets out of there. Because, remember, scorpions can eat scorpions, and they can get very hungry. So he gets out of there as soon as he can. Now, the babies are not eggs, like in the case of spiders. They're live born. And when they're live born, then with those little sensory hairs, they know it's their mom. That's how they can tell. And they clamber up onto her back. And they stay there until after at least their first molt, sometimes more. Now, this sounds like, oh, it's a scorpion, so it'll just be a couple of days. It can last for years. And some of the bigger scorpions, they can stay up there for 2 years. Yes, and in this picture, you'll see a blow-up of them all clambered on top. And they hang out there and they will share in her food, climb down, share in the food, climb back on there. She's protecting them because their exoskeleton is still soft. And it needs to get harder, and they need to get bigger before they can go off and find territories of their own. And yeah, so imagine 2 years carrying around all those babies. Yeah. Okay, after their first molt, they have to molt in order, that's when they shed their skin, their exoskeleton, and they have another one underneath it. Like spiders, they do that too. Because not like us, we can grow without shedding our skin because our bones are inside. But they can't because they have that hard exoskeleton. So they would have to molt, as in that would come off, and the one that they grew before the other one came off would be there, and then it has to harden up. And that allows them to get larger. And they molt many times in their lifetime to get to their adult size. Some of them take 7 years to become adults. But they're very long-lived species. Most of the species, they can live to 25 years old. That's pretty darn good for something like that. Anyway, as I was doing some research on this, I was learning all sorts of interesting facts. So it goes to show that if you read a book, you can learn all sorts of things. If you know how to read, you can teach yourself anything, and you can learn such amazing things about this world. Anyway, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Bill. I'm a docent naturalist at Placerita Nature Center. I'm going to talk about ticks and mites. Ticks are blood-sucking arthropods. They drink your blood. There is approximately 500,000 ticks and mites. They can range from anywhere from 1/50th of an inch to over an inch. They live mostly in wooded areas. They can't jump from trees like people think. They go up grasses and sit there and wait for something to come by. When something comes by, they jump off and take their little pincers and dig into the skin, and they secrete a saliva that turns into a kind of a cement that holds them in place. They don't bury their heads in your skin like people say. If by chance you do have a tick, you can take it off with a pair of tweezers, or you can do a handy dandy tick remover. Ticks go from egg to larva to nymph to adult. When they're a larva, they only have 6 legs. When they do their first molt into a nymph, they get their extra 2 legs. So then they have 8 legs, just like the spider. Ticks carry diseases. They can carry what's called Lyme disease. The western black-legged tick is the one that gives off Lyme disease. They're not in this valley or in this area. They stay mostly to the coast. Coast of California or Oregon and Washington. They like cool weather. Lyme disease can cause muscle ache, respiratory problems, different symptoms. A lot of people look for a red target when the tick bites you, but that's not necessarily true. It can be just a round red spot, sometimes oval. If you're out camping, and you should stay on a trail that's groomed, don't go tromping through the bushes because that's where the ticks are. Ticks are approximately 3 feet off the ground in grasses and bushes, and if you happen to walk by, they'll jump off. When the tick is up in tall grass, he takes his front legs and waves them around, and that's called questing. What they do is they have sensors in their front legs, and they pick up odors and carbon dioxide, which we exhale. When we exhale, we give off carbon dioxide. Mammals breathe. When something goes by and they sense that, they'll jump off. Now, we'll go to mites. There's thousands of mites. They're mostly will bite, except for one. One's called scabies. They will crawl, they'll dig into your skin and make a tunnel about 1 centimeter long and lay their eggs. They also cause mange, like in animals. And also cause mange in humans that can be contracted from person to person or from animal to person or back and forth.
Thank you everybody for joining us here at Placerita Canyon Nature Center. We hope you'll be able to visit us at some time and see our beautiful canyon. Thank you for joining us today.